Hey, Sean.
Hey, Wayne. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
There's some people who haven't attended previously came today, so maybe a super quick introduction from Kai and Sean would be great.
Sure. So I'm Sean Carroll. I'm the engineering manager for Source Code. And I'm very interested in this project and what's going on here. And just quickly about myself, I'm not by any means a expert in machine learning, but I did work in a lab at a Swiss university for nearly 4 years on supporting machine learning projects, mostly from an infrastructure perspective.
Cool. And then I'm Kai. I'm the product manager for code review, and I'm only here because we're going to be your first implementation point, I suppose, at some point in the future. So thought we'd come say hi, and then probably won't come back for at least a little while, a couple milestones maybe.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Kai. So we usually don't screen share in meetings, but this, I think it's warranted. Item number 1 is just to go through the issue board. Issue boards at GitLab are not obvious until you kind of work with them, at least in our usage of them, and our specific labels. So I'm going to maybe share screen for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. So let me do that and share the correct screen. That's if it will. So there's many different labels used. We, in our product development flow process, the ones that we're at least currently using are things like scheduling, which means in this board you can open and close these. So I can open them, close that. So scheduling is we haven't started work on it, but we will in the future. It needs to be scheduled. Block means it's blocked on something. It could be blocked on another issue or something else, or like this one's blocked on time, like Mihao is not transitioning officially to this team for another week or so. So I'm just kind of calling it blocked based on time. Then there's ready for development, which means we are ready to start developing on it, but we haven't, and in development, which means we're actively developing it. And there's other ones like in review, in production, etc. So the ones that we want to be, that Alexander and I want to be working on now, and others as interested, is determining the plan for the open source components that don't exist in GitLab infrastructure, which we've been collaborating on async in the issue, which is great. Publishing the plan in a handbook page based on that, which I'll do based on everyone's feedback. So I'll create that initial handbook page and tag anybody interested to review it as we merge it and then iteratively improve it. And then creating the infrastructure request. So we can get that in for the infrastructure team for the proof of concept. And then going back a bit, the big change to the code base is replacing ADF with Google Dataflow or similar for the proof of concept, which Alexander, once you start working on that, just change the label from ready for development to in dev, and then it'll show up here. And that will be the kind of the next task to go from there. I think we are closing in on the in dev ones as we finalize, for now at least, this iteration of the architectural plan, document it, and then create the infrastructure request. So Alexander and I and Mihao and I think others have been collaborating on that. So does the issue board make sense? Any questions about issue boards in general or about these plans here? Great. I'll stop the share. So Alex, you had 2 comments on the current issues. Do you want to verbalize? No, you're on mute, Alex.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot. Yeah, 2 comments. Like, I found that we have 2 design graphs right now, so maybe we can join them. The first one is for the first milestone, as I understood, but the second one is for the second milestone. But still, we can join them because we found that Hive and ADF, we don't need them, so we can simply join this part.
Yeah. So how about you? Yes. Why don't you be the DRI and combine them? So consider you're the directly responsible individual. You're the owner. So I'll stop editing. Go for it. And okay. Thank you.
I will do that.
And second comment, Alex?
Just a comment that I have updated the descriptions on how on review uses different components. So you can find it there. I have attached the link. So there are more explanations.
And I reviewed that. That looks great. I'd encourage others as well as we update the integration plan.
Yeah, I lost myself with the handbook a bit, so I fixed this one only yesterday.
Great. So you've got number 2 as well, Alex.
So I have some other questions. Can we start working on the handbook page? So we can open a merge request, we can collaborate there. Because I found that we can start working because we have the first, we know the picture before, we know the picture, we know the future picture, so we can start describing these things.
Absolutely. I'll work on the first draft. I'm good at doing handbook pages because then you can spend your time not on handbook pages as much and on actually changing the review code base. Does that sound okay to you?
It's like I'm waiting for my laptop, so still I have time to update this page.
Okay, if you want to do it, that's great. Can you, if that issue, I think that issue is assigned to me. If you're going to be primary on it, just reassign it to you. When is the laptop supposedly going to arrive?
It's somewhere right now between London and Moscow, I guess. So maybe during the next week, I hope.
Okay, thanks, Alex. You also have number 3.
Yep. So we found how to replace Hive and Azure Data Factory, so that's cool. But we also, we have to decide how to deploy Kafka. I have attached the comment, so I found 3 options how we can do that. But still, I'm thinking that, like, we focus more on the POC, right? So we don't need to create a high availability cluster or something like that. So maybe if you give me some time, I can check which option is better for us right now, because I can easily use my own workplace in Google, and I can check. So and I will write everything in that issue.
Sounds great. And then anyone interested can subscribe, can watch the issue and comment on it. And we can continue working on it async. So that's great, Alex.
Number 4, right? I have a lot of questions. So unreview requires a scheduler to automatically start the extract stage and the training stage, because I haven't implemented this before. I think that Airflow looks good, but I'm not sure that this is the goal of the first milestone. Maybe it's better to move to the second milestone.
How long do you think, how often do you think we'll run the daily?
Initially, I thought that maybe it would be enough to run each week to extract some more information about merge requests, and then finally to retrain the model. Because for the protocol,
I think manual scheduling for the POC is just fine. Past the POC.
Yeah. That's what I do right now.
What does everybody else think?
Yeah.
Wouldn't once a week be too much? I don't think we don't. I think we generate a lot of data in a week. So I imagine training the model daily, or at least ingesting the data daily, would put a lot less pressure on the components involved, especially the database. I mean, a database outage can come even from a read. Maybe not for a long time, but we can get a statement timeout. So we need retries. We need to we need to consider database pressure. Basically, what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So once a
true.
week, I think is not. I'm lacking the word here. It's not often enough. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Right now, I mean, the last project that I used I see right now that GitLab produces much more data than other projects. So that's why, yeah, that's true that maybe 1 week is too much. But but we know maybe that's not necessary for the first milestone, because we're trying to produce the POC, right? So maybe we can move that to the, or at least, for example, if we finish everything for the first milestone in 1 month and we have 1 month more, maybe we can do that.
Is there a significant difference in how often you ingest the data with regards to training the model?
What do you mean?
I mean, if you want to if you want to run the data ingestion once a week, is there going to be a different? Is there going to be a big difference between ingesting it daily and once per week? Once per week, if you want to fetch data from a week before, then you're going to have a huge query with a ton of results. If you fetch data per day, then you're going to have lots of smaller queries. So yeah, I imagine database people would be far happier having small queries rather than a one huge query. So that's my main point here, basically.
Yeah, I made a few experiments with Airflow before the acquisition. So one I used to split the history before today into several intervals, and then to take this data for these intervals and to ingest and to process this data and move it to the database to remove this pressure. It's possible to do with Airflow.
Okay. If we can slice it.
Yeah, I mean, to slice and not to have a very big query. When we extract everything, we process everything, and then when we move everything to the database, yes, we will produce a great pressure. I mean, to slice and then to make it with some, I don't know, with some buffer between these intervals.
I'm not exactly sure. What do you mean by this?
I mean, for instance, we can extract data for one year, 2 years ago, then for 1 year ago, and then for the current year, like that.
All right. What I'm talking about is like if you try to extract a year's worth of data in one query, then we are getting a database timeout. Like you can't extract that much data. So you need to slice it into smaller chunks. Like 1 week ago, and 1 week ago, I still think that's going to be too much, and you're going to get a statement timeout. So we are looking at preferably getting 1 day of data worth per day or per query, or maybe per hour. The actual interval between queries needs to be adjusted. But if we try to get a week's worth of data in one query, then we're going a database timeout, and someone's not going to be happy if we do that far too often.
Yeah, maybe in this case, we need to introduce Airflow during this milestone. Because
what I can tell you is that we have 100 milliseconds query timeout on the production database. So if your query takes more than 100 milliseconds, it's going to timeout.
Yeah, but we can say, okay, give me the data before date A and date B. So and then make and drops like that.
I do. The proof of concept is definitely proof of concept. It doesn't need to be production ready. So we definitely need to not cause too high load in the database, nor have it fail because the queries time out. However, I think automated scheduling to pull the data and process it is probably not needed for the proof of concept. We can babysit it manually in the proof of concept, I think. If data pull doesn't work, for example, or things like that, perhaps. But we don't need to decide that now, but I'm okay with manual scheduling for the proof of concept personally.
All right.
But that doesn't mean that's the right way to go. That's just my opinion.
Or another option, I can create an issue and I can write everything there. So maybe we can discuss, yeah.
Sounds good. Alex, you also have number 5, which is great.
So can we start a new issue to discuss thoughts on how an review might be used by self-hosted customers? Because I feel that we need to discuss these things because all the time when we propose something, other team members, they say something like, okay, we cannot use this or that one, that technology because we need to support self-hosted customers. So maybe we need to start discussing these things to understand. Maybe we need to introduce several strategies. For example, one strategy for GitLab.com, another strategy for self-hosted customers, because we need to understand the pressure that we can produce while training models and extracting data.
It's a great question, Alex. My concern is we got too many things going on at once, and we need to make progress on some things. However, some of these decisions that we make may not be two-way door decisions. Meaning once we go through the door, it's hard to go back through the door and go back. The current philosophy is that we believe that most self-hosted customers, this can change, wouldn't want to run this themselves due to not having the processing power to do so or want to dedicate it. So what instead we do is leverage something that doesn't exist yet, of having an ability for self-hosted customers, if they choose to, then we extract the data at the customer, when the customer's instance, send the data to our cloud, process it, compute, run the models, and then send the result recommendations back. So we can depend on cloud-based resources. If that turns out to not be a valid assumption, then what components we choose to power things is much more important. But because right now, at least that's the assumption, that we use something like that for self-hosting. Is that still the valid way to think about it, Taylor?
Yeah, I think so. There's still a thought too that this could potentially be tied to usage ping for us to incentivize people to turn that on, as well as we already have a mechanism for sending data back to GitLab. I'm not convinced that's the right choice here. I think talking to some customers would help decide that. So I think we can start having some of these exploratory conversations. We've already got a few customer calls lined up of customers that are interested in just this capability in general. So I think that's one way to start down this path, is just start having customer conversations.
Can we make the assumption that we can address, that we may need to do some refactoring if we decide to support self-hosted in a different way? Because it does make it harder for us to progress on the POC and the .com, the GitLab hosted ones, if we don't make that assumption. So I'd like us to make that assumption, that if we change the path, we may have some refactoring. I see you nodding, Taylor. So good. So I guess, does that make sense, Alex? We can assume cloud hosted for now, and self-hosted, we may make some decisions that are suboptimal in the distant future, or may not, but we're okay with that. So we can make more iterative progress now.
The other thing I would say too is, I mean, as we run this on our own code base, we'll get a better sense of what the actual requirements are for the compute here. If it's not crazy, there is very much a possibility that we may just offer this as a specialized runner or something. So I think we still just need a little bit more information about how this is going to run, what the performance profile, what the cost profile looks like, just running within our own data set.
Thanks. So right now the performance is not so, crazy. That does require a lot of resources right now because the model is not so difficult. But as soon as we start, to improve the model, we will get much more. We'll produce more pressure.
We're talking about specialized GPU instances, or the current complexity of the model can be trained on a GPU, a CPU. Sorry.
Right now we can use GPU to train the model because it supports GPU.
But can we use CPU, or is this going to be an order or two of magnitude slower?
We can use the CPU right now; it will be fine. But if we start to make some to add some neural networks, so it'll be
okay.
hard.
So we could theoretically start over with a CPU, your optimized instances, and if we decide that hey, GPU processing power is required, then we can move to GPU optimized instances. Okay, that's.
But I mean that is only right now because
yes, I do understand that question is whether right now can we use CPU or we need GPU right away.
We can use CPU and it will be fine.
Okay, great. That's good to hear.
Okay, Andre, you have a thought you want to verbalize?
Sure, Wayne. I just mentioned this. I don't know if exactly the same strategy would apply here, but it might be worth checking out how we did for the source graph, which is, it's different because it's a third-party software application. But we do allow customers that have airtight instances to set up their own instance of source graph and set up so GitLab connects to their local instance of source graph instead of relying on sourcegraph.com. I don't know if it's exactly the same scenario here, but that's something that we already support at the product level for his instance managers. So I don't know if Kai, if you have anything else to add, that might be worthwhile. You also follow up that process, but just wanted to mention.
I say there's 3 other models for like running additional infrastructure, which is SourceGraph, Gitpod, and then Elasticsearch. All 3 of them require and self-managed separate infrastructure if you want to run them and like have different configurations. So there's like three places or groups that you can talk to. And I worked on all of them, but I'm happy to let you go talk to PMs who work on them still.
John, I think actually we happened to cover your comment already, but did we cover that fully or not yet?
Yeah, sorry, just as I was typing it, I think it was actually answered on both parts. So just about do we need a GPU and what do we do with self-hosted, but sounds like we have that answered.
Hey, Andre, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself.
Sure. So yeah, hi everyone. Just wanted to say hi from Code Review. Excited to see the work of this group. Excited for the news. And I understand that right now we're at a implementation stage. We're setting things up, the groundwork and everything. So it might be a little bit too soon, but I just wanted to make ourselves available if you need anything to know about Code Review, anything down the line. I'm the front-end engineering manager for the group, so I can even if I don't know the answers, I can find those who do. So anything at this point that we can help with?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Actually, you and Kai have both given, and Sean, different groups have already given us some great ideas. Yeah, we're not planning to integrate with the GitLab product at all until milestone 2, which is at our current schedule, wouldn't be going live for 4 months. And we're not going to start working on that for 2 months. We're working on proof of concept now, which doesn't change any code in the GitLab product itself in milestone 1. So, but glad to see you here. Of course, you're always welcome, and love to have your feedback on things. But we won't be asking you to do anything other than give us feedback on our plans for probably about 2 months.
That's fine. I'll be hanging out on the weekly whenever I can. But if you ever need anything, feel free to ping me asynchronously and we'll help. Cool. Thanks.
All right, we're about out of scheduled time. Anything else we should discuss? Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.